Welcome to Historic Hub. Today, we're diving into the untold stories of the Titanic, a tragedy that's been remembered for over a century, but there's more to the story than you might think. Let's uncover the forgotten lives and moments that shaped one of history's most famous disasters. The sinking of the RMS Titanic on April 15, 1912, remains one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history. While the basic facts are well known, an unsinkable ship strikes an iceberg and sinks on its maiden voyage. Many lesser-known stories about the passengers, crew, and the aftermath of the tragedy are equally compelling and deserve attention. Here's a deep dive into some of these unheard stories. The Titanic, a floating microcosm of society. The Titanic was more than just a ship, it was a microcosm of Edwardian society, carrying a cross-section of humanity from the world's wealthiest elites to impoverished immigrants seeking a new life in America. This social stratification became tragically apparent in the disaster's unfolding. The wealthy and the powerful among the first-class passengers were some of the most influential figures of the time. John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest men in the world, was aboard with his pregnant wife, Madeline. Astor's fate is well documented. He perished when the ship went down, but what is less known is his last moments. He reportedly helped his wife into a lifeboat, reassured her, and calmly asked if he could join her. When he was denied due to the "women and children first" rule, he stepped back, smoking a cigarette. His body was later found, crushed and mangled, indicating he had been killed by a falling funnel. Isidore and Ida Strauss, co-owners of Macy's department store, also made headlines for their tragic fate. Ida refused to leave her husband's side, reportedly saying, "Where you go, I go." They were last seen sitting on deck chairs, arm in arm, waiting for the end. Their story became a symbol of enduring love and loyalty. The unsung heroes, the Titanic's crew. The crew of the Titanic also played critical roles during the disaster. While Captain Edward Smith's actions have been scrutinized, many of his officers and crew performed heroic deeds. Chief Baker Charles Juffin's story is particularly remarkable. As the ship sank, Juffin methodically threw deck chairs into the water to help passengers use them as flotation devices. When the ship's stern rose, he calmly walked to the back of the ship, clinging to the railing as the vessel plunged into the icy waters. Incredibly, he survived in the freezing ocean for hours, longer than almost anyone else, because he had consumed a significant amount of alcohol, which he later claimed insulated him from the cold. He was eventually rescued by a lifeboat and lived to tell his tale. Another heroic figure was Second Officer Charles Lightoller, the highest-ranking officer to survive. Lightoller was instrumental in launching lifeboats, strictly enforcing the "women and children first" protocol. He even had a lifeboat lowered with only 12 people in it to avoid the chaos that erupted as the ship sank. After the Titanic went down, Lightoller found himself on an overturned collapsible lifeboat with dozens of others. He helped keep the group alive by maintaining order and keeping them balanced on the precarious raft until they were rescued. The orchestra, playing until the end. Perhaps one of the most poignant stories is that of the Titanic's band, led by Wallace Hartley. As the ship sank, the musicians famously played on, trying to keep passengers calm in their final moments. The band continued to play until the very end, even as the ship's bow plunged underwater. The last song they played is a matter of debate, with some survivors claiming it was "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Regardless of the exact piece, their selflessness and bravery have been immortalized in history and popular culture. The unheard voices, third-class passengers. While first-class passengers have often been the focus of Titanic narratives, the third-class, or steerage, passengers, who made up the majority on board, suffered the greatest losses. Of the approximately 710 third-class passengers, only about 174 survived, a staggering 75% mortality rate. The experience of these passengers during the disaster was starkly different from that of those in first and second class. Many third-class passengers were immigrants from various parts of Europe, including Ireland, Sweden, and the Middle East, hoping to start a new life in America. Their cabins were located in the lower decks, far from the lifeboats. Reports suggest that some of these passengers were delayed from reaching the upper decks, either by locked gates or confusion about where to go. Language barriers and a lack of understanding about the ship's layout further exacerbated their plight. One harrowing account comes from 12-year-old Frank Goldsmith, who survived with his mother, but his father did not. Frank later recalled the confusion and fear as third-class passengers tried to make their way up to the lifeboats, only to find many already gone or unreachable. Rescue and aftermath. The role of the Carpathia. The RMS Carpathia, a Cunard Line ship, played a critical role in rescuing Titanic's survivors. Commanded by Captain Arthur Rostron, the Carpathia was about 58 miles away when it received the Titanic's distress signal. Despite the distance and the danger posed by icebergs, Rostron immediately ordered the ship to maximum speed, arriving at the scene nearly 4 hours later. Rostron's actions were nothing short of heroic. He had the ship's heating and hot water systems shut down to redirect all steam power to the engines, ensuring they reached Titanic as quickly as possible. Upon arrival, the crew worked tirelessly to pull survivors from lifeboats, providing them with blankets, hot drinks, and medical care. Rostron's leadership during the crisis earned him widespread praise, and he was later awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by the United States Congress. The Unknown Child, a mystery solved. One of the most heartrending stories from the Titanic is that of the unknown child. In 2001, a small, unmarked grave in Halifax, Nova Scotia, was exhumed. It contained the remains of a young boy, around 2 years old, who had perished in the disaster. For decades, the identity of this child was a mystery, symbolizing the thousands of lives lost. Thanks to advances in DNA testing, the child was eventually identified in 2007 as Sidney Leslie Goodwin, a 19-month-old boy from England who had been traveling with his parents and 5 siblings, all of whom died in the disaster. The Goodwin family had been emigrating to the United States, seeking a new start. The story of Sidney Leslie Goodwin and the long journey to identify him brings a personal, human face to the vast scale of the tragedy. Legal and cultural impact. The Titanic disaster had far-reaching consequences, leading to significant changes in maritime law. The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, SALAS, was established in 1914 as a direct response to the tragedy. This treaty mandated sufficient lifeboats for all passengers, lifeboat drills, and continuous radio watches, all measures aimed at preventing a similar disaster. Culturally, the Titanic's sinking had a profound impact, symbolizing the hubris of mankind's technological advancements and the class disparities of the time. It has been the subject of countless books, films, and studies, each retelling the story from different angles and perspectives. The Titanic's wreck, a graveyard at the bottom of the ocean. The wreck of the Titanic itself, discovered in 1985 by Robert Ballard, has continued to captivate public imagination. The ship lies in 2 main pieces on the ocean floor, about 12,500 feet below the surface. Over the years, numerous expeditions have explored the wreck, recovering artifacts that have provided new insights into the disaster. However, the ethics of these explorations have been controversial. Some argue that the Titanic's wreck should be left undisturbed as a maritime grave, while others believe that recovering and preserving artifacts is crucial for historical preservation. The Titanic's wreck remains a powerful reminder of the tragedy, with its haunting images of decayed structures and personal belongings serving as a poignant connection to those who perished. Final thoughts. The human side of the Titanic. The sinking of the Titanic was not just a disaster of engineering or maritime misjudgment, it was a human tragedy on a massive scale. The stories of bravery, love, loss, and survival that emerged from the event continue to resonate more than a century later. These lesser-known tales provide a deeper understanding of the disaster, reminding us of the real people behind the statistics and the enduring impact of their stories. By focusing on these personal narratives, you can create a compelling and emotionally resonant video that explores the Titanic disaster from a fresh perspective. This approach not only honors the memory of those who lived and died but also engages your audience by highlighting the timeless themes of human resilience and the pursuit of hope even in the face of unimaginable adversity.